Good afternoon to everyone. We are coming from Voices of the North podcast. We have a special guest today, President Champion. He is the first Black person to serve as the Senate President here in the state of Minnesota. How are you doing this afternoon?
I am doing well. Thank you so much for having me. And it's always exciting to be in the district, but also talking to you and appearing on Voices of the North. You know, it's interesting that your name is the North, Voices of the North, because the North Star is around guidance and direction. And if you're lost, all you got to do is look towards the North.
Absolutely. Okay, so one of my first questions for you is, can you please explain to the listening audience exactly what is your job at the Capitol?
Well, first of all, I am the proud senator for Senate District 59. That's the district that I represent, which is North Minneapolis, the North Loop, where you are, downtown, portion. I used to have a portion of Bryn Mawr, but also a little northeast. So if you think about it, I go as far north as 53rd, because that's where Brooklyn Center picks up, and as far south as the U.S. Bank Stadium. So the U.S. Bank Stadium is in my district, the theater's in my district, and so I represent that area. So when we think in terms of representing that area, first of all, being elected by the individuals who says, I want you to represent us and be our voice at the Capitol. So when we think in terms of critical issues that are important to Senate District 59, that's what I promote, whether it's health, wellness, education, higher ed, public safety, you name it. I try to make sure that what is best for Senate District 59 is also best for the rest of the state. But also being president, I preside over the Senate. So I'm in charge of how things flow, rulings, whatever happens flows through me. So to start the Senate, or let's say something's going on, they have to talk to me and talk through me. So if I don't recognize you, there's nothing you can do. Or if I rule something out of order, or a point of order is well taken, that's the ruling, and that's what they abide by. So there's never been a person like me, or that looks like you, ever been president of the Senate. And no one has been Speaker of the House that looks like me or you. And remember that the state of Minnesota was established in 1858. So since that time, this is the first time, and I'm proud.
Absolutely. How many years have you been doing this type of work, Mr. Champion?
So, I'm a lawyer by trade. I still practice law every single day. So I practice entertainment law, criminal defense, both state and federal cases, and some business law. And so I first got elected to the House in '08. So at the same time Barack Obama ran, that's the first time I ran.
Okay.
So I served two terms in the House, and when Barack Obama says, hey, I'm going for a second term, that's when I ran for the Senate. So since 2012 is when I started in the Senate. But in the legislature, I first started in '08.
Okay, I heard you also explaining that the senators and the people working in the Capitol have to go through you to speak, or to make sure they're acknowledging you. Can you please tell me, how does your work support the other senators?
Well, that's good, because remember that the floor is really about how do we pass important public policy. And so that comes in the form of a bill. And this work is to really make sure that there's a great environment in order to debate the substance of the policies that are being put forward. And how I support their work is creating that opportunity for them to be able to say why they should get the support of their colleagues or not. And it's really to benefit the public, because we really represent the public. It's really not just about us. And so this work is really about creating opportunities for real debate to happen around substantive issues that impact our life every day. And what I strive to do every day is improve the quality of life for us.
Okay. How about for the younger generation that might not know, like, your roots or history, as far as like being over north, that you grew up in that area? So can you touch on that a little bit for us?
Thank you for that question. I'm a proud North Sider, right? And every time kids come over to the Senate or come to the Capitol, I talk about my roots. I talk about being the fifth out of six kids. Mom and dad being from the South, migrating from the South to the North. Being someone who grew up and was raised in North Minneapolis, because I was born and raised in North Minneapolis, went to public schools, including North High School is where I graduated from, and then also going into law school, college, McAllister College, and talking about how I had to do that, where my parents didn't have enough money for me to even live on the college campus, so I had to take a bus, 3 buses every day. 3 buses there, 3 buses back home, until I started making sure that my car was fixed and that I could drive. But just talking about those lived experiences, even going to law school and them seeing me as someone who looks like them, who's been through their same challenges, but also saying, if I can do it, you can do it. I'm the example of the fact that if I can do it, you can do it. There's nothing so special about me that says I'm the only person that can do it. So I just try to create an opportunity for them to see themselves and build hope. Because guess what? The most dangerous person is an individual who has no hope. And so I talk about my background, my history, what's important to me, what this community has been like and about, and how I have grown up to be who I am, because I'm proud of that. Just because I'm from North Minneapolis, I say to everyone, good things and good people come from North Minneapolis as well. I don't want, and nor do I expect people to look down upon us, because I don't look down upon anyone else. I could say, it's too bad you didn't grow up in North Minneapolis. But I look at everyone's lived experience as an opportunity for us all to learn and grow. I have a saying that says, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And it's good to have diverse voices at the table so that we can make sure that we get the best outcomes.
Absolutely. Can you share any concerns or solutions about what some changes would look like for over North, as far as like maybe we'll say like gang violence or the gun violence or the things that we see that's going on, and it's just not over North, it's really happening in the whole state, but people like to point it out over North because I feel like that's where we of color majority live, is over North, so we get the stigma on that.
Well, let me tell you, that's a big question, and it's one that I'm going to try to deal with on the level of complexity that you put forward.
Okay.
So when you think in terms of the challenges of and the challenges I see, remember that unfortunately there's so many disparities in the state of Minnesota when it comes to people of color that it almost creates 2 states, one for the majority and one for us. And when I say us, I'm also talking about other people of color as well.
Right.
Whether you're Latino, Hmong, Somali, whatever. Right? So that's also true when you think in terms of health, wealth, education. No matter what the pieces that you're looking at, housing, we are at the bottom. So those are challenges that I believe that we have to deal with every single day and work hard to change those systems that create an environment for those disparities. One of those, in my opinion, is poverty. The common denominator, when you think in terms of these other disparities, is poverty. And I believe it's important for people to make livable wages, to be healthy, because without your health, you don't have anything. Your health is everything. Housing, so that you have some place to live. And we get better educational outcomes when there's stable housing and our communities are stable. So when you think in terms of public safety, not just for us to feel safe, but to be safe. And we have to do something about our young people who are sometimes behaving in a way that we're not always proud of. But it's also going to take us who are in the household to make sure we know where our kids are due.
Absolutely.
And we don't want police and law enforcement and others to treat them badly, but we want to make sure that they get the support that they need. And I think we have to deal with the root causes of public safety, not just, whether there's juvenile stuff that is for intervention, prevention, all that's important. But what are the other root causes? Poverty, lack of education, mental health issues, all those other things that we need to deal with in real time. So as we deal with the root causes of public safety, we also improve our quality of life, because guess what? The majority of people who are in prison have a mental health issue or a chemical dependency issue, or they've experienced some trauma that has gone on untreated. There are other things that we have to deal with in real time and be honest with ourselves as people. Because I don't want to just look at the police alone. I want them to treat me right, but I want to make sure that somebody who looks like me also treats me right.
Absolutely.
So I think we have to deal with it holistically, and I think that when we silo these matters, like some people just say, I'm in education, so I'm in education. Some people say, I'm in housing, so I'm just in housing. But no, all those things connect to each other. Mm-hmm. And if I'm in education, I should also be fighting for housing. If I'm in housing, I should be fighting for higher ed, whether that's vocational or college, and making it affordable, or making sure that we rid our community of guns. Mm-hmm. People who shouldn't have guns shouldn't have them, and we have to deal with that in real time. And who's helping to make sure that our young people have more access to a gun than a scholarship for college or VOTEC, right?
Right.
But we, as a community, also have to take ownership of our community and begin to do the things that I know traditionally we've always done. And I'm gonna say this last thing, and then I'll let you ask me the next question.
Okay.
Growing up in North Minneapolis, my parents would let us go outside and would tell us, be home before the lights come on.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You could walk down the street and miss whoever could see you, and she was gonna see you. Make sure that you are behaving appropriately. And if you were not behaving appropriately, she would say something to you and say, I'm gonna tell your mama that I saw you and that you were not behaving right. And she would discipline us as if we were her own children, because back then our community was a family.
Yeah.
And my mom would not go down to Miss, you fill in the last name, like Miss X's house, and say, why did you touch my kid? My mom's gonna go down and say, thank you. Mm-hmm. If you see him misbehaving again, slap him upside his head, make sure that you get him right, because they cared about us and all the children in our community, and not just their own. We have to sometimes go back and tell those stories, because what has happened is we started trying to shy away from it. Mm-hmm. We started letting other people decide how we should raise our children and what was considered appropriate or inappropriate. And guess what? It has not served us well. So I think we have to go back and look at it holistically and understand that it's about we and not about just me.
Yeah, what I hear you saying is the community needs to get together and mesh together as a community, working together. I've been seeing on the news about the missing indigenous women. I want to know, is there anything going on at the Capitol towards the missing Black women and girls? Could you tell me about that?
That's a great question. Yes, I'm proud to say. I am the chief author of that bill. It's the Office of Missing and Murdered Girls, Black Girls and Women.
Okay.
And in the House, Representative Ruth Richardson is the proud sponsor. So we worked together in the House and Senate and got it through our respective bodies, and the governor signed the bill. Now we have an office that's dedicated to making sure there's resources for if a Black girl or Black woman is missing, and do all the things in that office that we do if someone from the majority community is missing.
Okay.
They spend money, they have the BCA, they have a clearinghouse, because why? We want to make sure that Black girls and Black women understand they're valued. Mm-hmm. And that, sadly, there have been stories where some people have stated, even on the sex trafficking side of the equation, that they go after women of color because they believe that nobody's going to look for them. Mm-hmm. They're going to if they believe that no one cares enough in order to make sure that they're prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. We want to change that. We're not asking for more. We're asking for our women and our girls to be treated with the same level of interest and value and respect. So there's an office. It's going to be funded annually, roughly $1.2, $1.3 million, and we want to make sure that it's utilized. And so we want to make sure that we change the course of action that says it's okay to kidnap, traffic, murder, injure Black girls and or Black women. And that if you do so, because we value them the same way we value other women from the majority community, you will be dealt with seriously. And so I am excited about that. So I know that there's the Office for Murdered and Missing Indigenous Women, because I think that's important. Because remember, as I talk about Black women or women of color, they all are in the same boat where their lives are sometimes not valued, or at least it doesn't come across as if they're valued. So we wanted to change that. And guess what? Budgets should reflect our values.
Right.
So it is a value. It's a part of our budget. The governor signed the bill, and I'm thankful for the great work also of Representative Ruth Richardson.
Okay. One other thing I would like to know is Grassroots in Action mobilizes and educates the community. We get out, we do phone banks for when it's time to vote. Could you please tell me, why do you think it's important for people to get out and vote?
Ooh. Well, let me tell you that voting is our voice, and it's the bedrock to our democracy. I care so much about voting that I've been caring ever since I've been in the legislature. Restore the vote. This year, the governor signed it into law, restoring the rights of 55,000 Minnesotans. And to me, that's powerful. Do you not know, I'm sure that you do, that there's been a cross-section of people who have paid their debt to society?
Yeah.
They've been living in our communities, holding up our communities, being positive contributors to our community, paying taxes, but can't vote for school board, county commissioner, state legislator, president, not even the office of estimates and taxation. They can't vote at all. They couldn't vote at all. So that means you never got a chance to hear their voice. And to me, I know it's important to our democracy. And let me tell you how important voting is. If voting wasn't so important, why would they work so hard to stop us from voting? Whether you're talking about poll tax or saying that you had to own property, they have put in place every stumbling block for you not to be able to vote. So when individuals say, my vote doesn't matter, it makes me cringe. Right? And we need to have a dedicated year-round initiative that's educating our community about the issues that are there, because sometimes we're working so hard that we don't always get a chance to not only articulate but identify with some of the issues that we need to be so clear about. And voting is a part of that. And you know what? There's a saying that says bad officials are elected when good people don't vote. Right? And so if you think about some of the bad people that got elected, it's because you didn't vote.
Absolutely.
And guess what the strategy is sometimes? The strategy sometimes is to make you doubt the importance of voting. They win.
Yeah,
because
that's right.
They don't have to now put up a barrier for you not to vote. They now deal with your mindset. And so, Grassroots, thank you for all the work that you're doing. Thank you for understanding the importance of voting, and thank you for understanding the importance of voting in our community, because those who need support really should be out there voting and making sure that we have the right people at the table speaking on our behalf. Voting matters. Elections matter. And if you want to push for change, we got to think also strategically, not just about the metropolitan area, but what allies do we have in the suburbs and in rural Minnesota? Because do you not know there are 201 legislators, 67 senators, 134 House members? If I want something passed, I just don't vote for North Minneapolis stuff. We got to vote for everything. So I got to make sure I have partners and others who are going to help me count to 34.
Absolutely.
And so that's why I believe and know that voting matters, and we need no initiatives that chills our right to vote. And we got to make sure our seniors are well taken care of. So restore the vote. Now we got 55,000 folks who can vote and who have once been incarcerated or not, but their voices matter, and I'm proud to say that I am the chief author of Restore the Vote.
Okay. All right, President Champion, we have arrived to one of my favorite questions
All
that
right.
I have to ask
So none of the other
everyone
questions, what was your favorite?
Yeah, they were good information, but this one is like my all-time favorite.
All right.
Okay. What encouragement would you give your 10-year-old self if you could go back and give your 10-year-old self some encouragement or advice? What would you say?
That's a good one. Let's see. What would I tell my 10-year-old self? I would tell my 10-year-old self that it's okay to dream. and to really dream and really think about what you really want to be and work like you know you can accomplish it. Because to me, what is the biggest tragedy is when our young people don't dream. That they don't even have a sense that they can go to the Caribbean or go, that there's another, there's international places to go. Mm-hmm. Or there is the possibility. So the first thing I would say that it's okay to dream. I would also say that it's okay sometimes to be disappointed. That disappointment doesn't mean failure. It means that you have to work through whatever your surrounding circumstances are in order to get to your desired outcome. See, to me, that's okay. That it's also okay to never say never. I remember I said, and this is a quote, I would never run for office. Never. I would never run for office. Look at me now. And I would also tell my 10-year-old self that I stand on the shoulders of others who thought that I could accomplish anything, and they wanted to make sure that they built a world for me where that was possible. And that you too, at 10 years old, are also thinking about what you want to do. And the reason why those are things that I would say to my 10-year-old self, because number one, you're never too young to start planting seeds in young people. Mm-hmm. Because what you do when you plant that seed and you water it, it grows. And based on the seed that you plant will determine what you're going to get back.
Right.
And there was a saying that says, before anyone had an opinion about me, God had a plan for me. What is that plan that God has for you? Because purpose, having a purpose-driven life, that's okay. You got to think about, what's my purpose? I'm not just here just to run up and down the street. That's important, but it's also important for me to be a kid and not make adult decisions when I'm 10 years old.
Right.
Because I think what also happens in our community, our young people sometimes make decisions at young ages as if they're adults. We have to contain that. I remember growing up, and if my mom and her sisters were talking, the first thing that they'd say, get out of grown folks' business, go outside somewhere, go somewhere and do something, right? And I better not ever think that I'm going to comment on whatever they're talking about, because there would be a price to pay for that, right? But I think that's when our mothers were being mothers. And our mothers were understanding things that they needed to keep away from their children, because they needed to develop. My mother never tried to be my friend. She loved me, but she wasn't trying to be my friend. Mm-hmm. She'd be very clear. You ain't talking to me like you and I friends. We are not friends. I'm your mama, right? And so to me, my young self would also say to listen to my elders. Mm-hmm. Because they do have some things to say. They've lived some experiences that sometimes when we get of age that we think, oh, they old. They don't know what they're talking about. Mm-hmm. You start acting like you're the first person that thought of this. And there's nothing new under the sun. And so I think it's all those things that I would say to my 10-year-old self, that it was okay when we would travel to the South, and I'd be at my Aunt Honey's house or my Uncle Fred's house, that I should be listening to. And respecting them. And there was a reason why you should respect them and respect their experiences, because they could save you a whole lot of heartache if you just listen. So that's what I would say to my 10-year-old self. So I'm sorry for going on, but that's a good question. I can see why it was your favorite.
That's one of my favorites. Absolutely. Well, I want to say thank you so much for coming out and sharing your time with us here at the Voices of the North. It was my honor and pleasure to interview you today.
You know what? Thank you so much. And thank you for sitting across the table from me and smiling and being the queen you are, and asking me such, eloquent and wonderful questions. I really do appreciate it. And you were asking me questions that not everyone asked me, actually. They asked me about some policy stuff, but very few people say, what would you say to your 10-year-old self? And then you think back on your own experience and as experiences, and what would you say? You know, the last thing I'll say is value is not determined by what you go through, because you always keep your value no matter what you go through. And I exhibited that one time. My sons were getting up for school, and I was always responsible for getting them up and getting them ready. And one day I had $100 bill, and I had them both sit down. I said, because it was early in the morning. And I said, what is this? They said, Dad, that's a $100 bill. I said, really? They said, yes. Yeah? So I started crumbling it up, and I threw it against the wall. I stomped on it. I took it through all sorts of things, and it was crumbled there. And I said, what is this? They said, it's a $100 bill. I said, what's the moral to the story? They said, no matter what it goes through, it never loses its value. Mm-hmm. That is what I think is important. Thank you so much.
That is good. Thank you.